Good morning again, everyone. It's Nick Petro at the National Weather Service in Raleigh with your weekly impact weather briefing, the Monday morning routine briefing for Central North Carolina. Today's briefing covers the period today through Sunday through the 3rd of February. Now, we do have a little bit of active weather, but so we're definitely going to jump into that right now and share with you what we think wintry weather-wise may happen here on Tuesday. So just starting out with the weather pattern. We do have a cold front that's headed our way. Right now it's basically across the Mississippi Valley. And that front's going to be, it's going to bring a shot of Arctic air our way. That front's expected to reach central North Carolina during the late day tomorrow. Now, that front will sweep across central North Carolina late tomorrow. We'll see a few hours of rain. It'll be warm enough, plenty warm enough, tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. We're going to see a few hours of rain like we typically do with most cold fronts. But at the end, after that front sweeps through and cold air begins to rush into our area behind the front, that rain may change to a very brief period of snow before that precipitation ends altogether late Tuesday afternoon and evening. So, this is a classic case where the cold air is rushing in behind the front, and it's just a timing issue. Does the moisture with the front get out of here before the cold air arrives, or is there enough moisture lingering behind where we see a few, an hour or so of some snowflakes, maybe a light, light coating? So that's a typical situation. Sometimes we refer to these as cold air chasing the moisture. Most of the time, the cold air doesn't get here in time while there's still moisture around. But in this particular case, there may be perhaps maybe just enough of a cold air rushing in to change that rain to snow before ending, where we could see maybe a light dusting of snow across the northwest Piedmont. I'll generalize and say from Raleigh north and westward. Okay, but that would be mainly on grassy surfaces. And with the temperature starting out warm during the day tomorrow, it's one of these situations where we're starting out warm and then turning cold instead of already cold being here. So, it's going to take any kind of accumulations would have to be very rate driven. That is, if we were to see any accumulation, it would have to be with a good sort of burst of snow, so to speak. Otherwise, there's not going to be heavy enough rates and enough cold air to give you anything other than maybe some grassy accumulations. Okay, so that said, we're not expecting any travel impacts at this time across central North Carolina. Okay, so otherwise, once we get through with this particular weather system, and I'll talk more about tomorrow's weather here, but moving on through the latter half of the week, we'll have high pressure and it'll be cold. I mean, this front's bringing an Arctic air mass, so get ready for some very cold temperatures, cold nights, but otherwise it looks mostly dry the rest of the week. All right. So let's get into a few more details about tomorrow. So clearly you can see, for the morning commute, the morning rush hour, we're not expecting really anything in the way. Here's 7 a.m. Tuesday. So not expecting anything in the way of wintry precipitation. So, for the morning commute across the Triad, you're going to be fine, no problem. And then you're probably wondering, well, why is there a gap between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. Tuesday in these images? And that's because there's really not much change. We're still, it's going to take a while for this band of rain along with the front to develop. So by early afternoon tomorrow, we should still be looking at rain, basically east of the I-77 corridor. So that, encompasses all of central North Carolina. It'll be warm enough for rain. The cold air will still be back towards the mountains. Okay. So through midday should be fine. By 4 p.m., we'll start to see on the very back edge, and again, I'm looking at the middle row on the left side. That's a depiction of simulation for precip type and radar. 4 p.m. So we may begin to see some of that rain mix with or change to snow across the western Piedmont, the I-77 corridor, and perhaps the Triad region. Okay, and then that whole thing will progress eastward. And looks like the changeover to any kind of snow holds off in the Raleigh-Durham area until after 6 p.m. So everybody should be able to get home okay, no problem, in the Triangle region tomorrow. And really, quite frankly, everybody should get home in the Triad region as well, even at 4 p.m. because, again, temperatures will be falling And we're starting out warm, so most of any accumulation that occurs, any light accumulation I might add, should mostly be on grassy surfaces. Okay, so anyway, and then that whole thing just continues to move east as the front exits the region. So it looks like maybe we see a brief period of some light snow across the I-95 corridor late Tuesday evening before it all ends and pushes east. Okay, so we're talking the second half of the day, particularly late afternoon into the evening hours, is when we expect any type of wintry precipitation to mix and occur. All right, so that's the timing. Now, how much? That's probably your next question. All right, so this is our most expected. This is our most likely, or our official forecast. And you can see in the dashed area, that's where we're expecting maybe a light dusting, mainly on grassy surfaces from Raleigh, north and west. Okay, because the temperature is going to be starting out the day warm. So given we're starting warm and then turning cold, that snow, after it changes, the ground should still be warm. So we're not expecting any major travel hazards or impacts at this time. Of course, we'll be monitoring if something changes or the system slows down, or if we expect the snow rates to be, heavier, then obviously we'll be addressing that with updates as needed. But right now, based on all the data we've got in front of us now, in the light amounts that are expected, we don't expect any travel impacts at this time. Okay. Now, temperature trends. So you might be wondering, well, okay, that's all well and good. Well, what about tomorrow night after it really gets cold? And certainly that is something I want to address here on this slide. And let me pull up the highlighter here, because this line right here is the temperature trend. And just I grabbed this screenshot for Raleigh. And at this link right here, you can click on this link, and I'll be emailing out these slides, and that'll take you to a website where you can pull this up for your exact location. But I just randomly grabbed Raleigh, and you can see this red line is the temperature trend. So here's the day Tuesday, here's tonight, I should say, and temperatures in the 30s. Okay, and then during the daytime tomorrow, prior to the front arriving, look how we get up into the mid-50s. So we're starting out, really warm, and then behind that front is when we start to drop, okay, into the 30s here tomorrow evening at Raleigh, and that's when we may see that switch from rain to snow. Okay, in the mid to late evening hours. But watch what happens later in the night. You'll notice temperatures continue to plummet into the mid and even lower 20s. So you might be wondering, well, what about the risk if there's water on the roads for black ice? Well, right now, there's another thing I want to point out, and that is the wind. Look at this wind. The wind will be up tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, so it's going to be kind of breezy. All right, and then the humidity, which is this green line, will be falling. So the atmosphere will be drying out. Okay, so with dry and breezy weather Tuesday night, we expect most of the wet roads will dry. But common sense would tell you any lingering wet spots on the road, if there are any lingering wet spots, could potentially freeze with the temperature dropping down to the mid-20s. So I'm not going to rule out black ice tomorrow night into Wednesday morning, but I'll say right now the expectation is that most of the roads should dry, tomorrow night after the precipitation ends. But any lingering wet spots could freeze by daybreak Wednesday morning. Now, of course, here at the National Weather Service Raleigh, we're monitoring that risk for black ice, and we'll address with updates as needed. So once we get a handle on exactly how much rain is going to fall, then we'll issue any kind of special weather statements or advisories if needed. But I want to just call your attention to how cold it'll be Wednesday morning. While we expect most roads to be dry, any wet spots from the evening before could freeze if there are any leftovers. All right. And again, just click this link right here. Let me see if I can click this here. If you click that link right here, it'll open up a web browser for you, and then you can just click on your area of interest. So Winston-Salem, for example. Let me click on Winston-Salem, and there you can see here's the temperature expected to drop into around 20 Wednesday morning. Okay, and you can see two tenths there of an inch of snow. So really, our forecast, our snow forecast, Let me call that out in case you're wondering, well, how much snow? Our official forecast calls for 0.2 of an inch. So, a dusting we're talking, even in Winston-Salem. But look how windy it is. So, that should help to dry up things overnight. All right. So that's how you get to that graph that I just showed. Click on this link when I email you the slides. All right. So that kind of addresses Tuesday. Let me just go through the rest of the routine slides that we show every Monday. No severe thunderstorm potential. Rainfall amounts, we're looking at, again, dry today. Tuesday's the main weather day. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday will all be dry. There is a hint maybe a weak front could come through over the weekend. Right now our official forecast is mostly, on the drier side. We'll address that, but it looks like, it would be a rain type situation. Either way you slice it, look, those amounts are next to nothing, so nothing to really worry about. I'm calling the rest of the forecast here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday dry, and then we'll take a look at this weekend later on. But you can see even rainfall amounts are only expected to be 1/4 to a 1/2 inch tomorrow. All right, what about next week? Well, good news is odds favor above normal temperatures for a change, with odds favoring above normal precip chances. So I suppose that's some good news. All right, so this wraps up the kind of summarizing this weekly briefing. The cold front will sweep across central North Carolina on Tuesday. We'll see a few hours of rain Tuesday afternoon and evening, but the rain may change to a brief period of snow before ending late Tuesday afternoon and evening. The Northwest Piedmont, or I can expand that a little bit more and say, areas from Raleigh north and west may see a light dusting of snow, mainly on grassy surfaces. Otherwise, no impacts expected. Okay, and with the dry and breezy weather Tuesday night, most of the wet roads should dry. However, any lingering wet spots may freeze by daybreak Wednesday morning. We're monitoring that and monitoring the risk for black ice, and we'll address it with updates as needed. Otherwise, dry and cold. Look at those high temperatures there. Wednesday and Thursday, we're talking only highs in the 30s for the most part, and temperatures, low temperatures in the 20s, if not teens. Look at teens Wednesday night. All right, and then warming back up Friday, but still below normal. High in the mid 40s is below normal. So anyway, that does it for the weekly briefing for Central North Carolina. Of course, we'll issue additional briefings as needed for Tuesday's weather. And so definitely stay tuned. Stay tuned to your email. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel. Stay tuned to our social media. Stay tuned to our webpage. So with that wraps up the weekly briefing.